Now, let's get to our main story. The art scene has obviously been hit hard by the pandemic, and a lot of people are worried about how our arts organizations are handling the crisis. Producer Kyle Lowe and I talked with folks from the Fresno Philharmonic, the Fresno Art Museum, Good Company Players, Children's Musical Theaterworks, and the Selma Arts Center, and asked 3 questions of each. How is your organization weathering the storm? Where do you see yourselves in 6 months? And will the local art scene survive? Here's our story.
The biggest challenge for us is keeping our choir intact, keeping everybody engaged, keeping everybody motivated. So when we get through this, we're all together again.
You had to do a lot of postponing or cancellations of performances. How many major performances did you have to move or post or cancel?
We canceled 3 this spring. We had a concert with the Master Chorale that we canceled. Of course, the Phil canceled the opera choruses program, and then Choral Solari, our daytime choir, had to cancel their concert.
I am very proud that we are doing very well, actually, and we should be able to open seamlessly to the public in August. I was fortunate that we were given a bequest just before the Hamre came down, with 24 hours notice to vacate our building, close it down, and work from home. And that bequest came in January, and I was able to stabilize our finances with that bequest and put some money aside. So between having some cash in the bank and having a staff that's phenomenal and totally capable of working from home full time, without my micromanaging them. I left them alone for a whole month before we started having staff meetings. We've all accomplished our goals as in each of our positions, and we're all working very carefully and completely towards opening safely to the public on August 22nd. And we've had a PPP loan that came through. We had a small business loan that came through that should be grants when all is said and done. Mm-hmm. So I've been able to maintain the fiscal solidity of the museum. And I'm very grateful that we have a small but mighty staff that are underpaid, because that's the only way I've been able to not furlough anybody or lay anybody off. It's been hell, basically, to pay them so little and have such high expectations. But I think the environment of the museum is such that it's absolutely worth working like this. It's better to be in this position than a huge staff with a lot of payroll and being laid off and having to go on unemployment. So for us, it's worked out really well.
Starting March 14th, we kept coming up with different plans. We are now on plan 5, and we're hoping that one's going to stick. Financially, we were really fortunate, and we didn't have a spring show scheduled, which normally would have opened around the end of March. We had classes scheduled instead, and we managed to get the first round of classes in before we had to shelter in place. And because we had the classes and not a show, I think everyone that does theater knows that you're all in. You've spent all your money by the time you're ready to open a show. And we would have been in really bad shape, because what we would have done is we would have had a show that we invested in and no revenue and refunds of money that we may not have had. So it's a long answer, but we got through that part. Right now, we're not rich, but we are doing okay. And we are having a modified summer program because we didn't want to totally give up doing anything. So we are having an extended day program for our 6 to 13-year-olds, and we're having an evening program for our 14 to 18-year-olds. That will happen this summer. So, and as I say, we're surviving. I don't know how long we can survive, but right now, survival is what's important, and we're doing that. And we'll just take it a day at a time, basically.
We are definitely coping. The past couple of months have been full of extraordinary and unique challenges. The immediate aftermath of the pandemic, hitting at least hitting in our consciousness here in Fresno in March, was obviously the, first canceling a couple of events that were coming right up. Then, the subsequent unwinding of basically the last third of our concert season. So that was the most immediate action that we were taking. The next round was then trying to figure out a pathway forward, for certainly for the immediate future for us, and then starting to think, beyond the next 2 or 3 months, what was going to happen. We applied very quickly for one of the Small Business Association PPP loans. We were fortunate to get that. That's giving us the opportunity to keep our staff paid. Also, it's giving us the opportunity to compensate our musicians for the concerts that we canceled, which is terrific. That's a huge benefit to them, and certainly a number of orchestras, in our universe here in California, have likewise been successful getting PPP funds. And so as our orchestras play, our musicians play for a number of different orchestras, that's going to be a huge help, starting this month and next month, being able to roll out those payments to them. So that was, that was sort of the initial aftermath of the pandemic for us. Obviously, too, we've also launched our first fundraising appeal since the pandemic, and have been quite pleased with the response from our regular supporters. People are staying with us, trying to, I think are anxiously awaiting for the time when we can be back in performance with them live. I think the other big area of activity for us since the pandemic hit has been obviously trying to continue to serve our community online, starting to get videos posted by Ray Hatoda and by our musicians on our social media platforms, and to start to continue to build out other ways of reaching people during this period when we can't reach them through live performance. And so we're continuing to explore other options there, and other things that are going to be rolling out, so that we're trying to stay in touch with our community, continue to serve our community, even though we can't be with people in the same physical space.
We were fortunate in that we have had somewhat of a cushion, and we did receive the PPP loan, but so we're all back working, but of course that lasts 2 months. We are so fortunate, actually, with the support from the community and from friends. So we've had a friend to set up a GoFundMe, 2 friends actually, as per suggestion from you, and help from you and Jim Irvine. So that's just delightful. And then the GoFundMe account will be really helpful. And then people have been sending us checks. Actors have attempted to give back their expense reimbursement check, which we've refused, bless their hearts. But we've just been completely inundated with support. Those people that aren't able to because they're out of work, and that's the most touching thing, have just sent notes and Facebook messages and emails and letters, and it inspires us to keep fighting. And we're scrappy. We've been through tough times before, so we're just doing what we need to do, and we'll just figure out after these 2 months whether we are indeed open and then generating some income, or what we need to do next, and we'll survive.
It's a dance class, one step at a time. It really is. Choreography to be designed by, unfortunately, some people that are designing it. So
quite a significant impact, I think, like it has on many other arts organizations, not just exclusively theater organizations. We postponed our entire season. We were able to do one production. We did Puffs, which was really fun, and we really enjoyed doing it. And then the rest of our season has been on hold since then. So that's, I think, the biggest effect that we've had through COVID. Financially, of course, that puts a big strain on the Selma Arts Center, like it does on all of these arts organizations. But I think that we are kind of positioned in a unique place, being a part of the city of Selma as well. And so I think that we are, in the same vein, kind of protected in a lot of ways, although we are still responsible for its income and finding money and that sort of thing. We feel a little more secure in that we know that we have the support of the city as well.
I wish I had a crystal ball. The landscape changes every 2 weeks on this. You know, a month ago, I would have had one answer. 2 months ago, I would have had a different answer. I really believe in 3-4 weeks, I'm going to have a different answer for you. So what it all depends on for us is there a good way to treat this disease if we get it? Will there be a vaccine? It's possible there'll never be a vaccine. So what can we do to mitigate the risks? And a lot of our people, both concert goers and performers in this town in the arts are in the susceptible age, where it's a little more dangerous. And so they're making some hard choices in life. So I can't tell you when we will be performing again. I can tell you that we have a scenario written out that allows for a lot of flexibility. In the meantime, we have other things we are planning.
Well, as a colleague of mine said, the hardest part is understanding not just the risks of reopening, but the psychology of it. So we will be opening our summer fall season, which was to open in July. It's now going to open August 22nd. We have bumped forward any of the exhibitions that were independently curated by us and would cost us money and cost us our preparators going out into the world and bringing back exhibitions, interfacing with strangers. So now the exhibition schedule through January, August through January, is shortened. It's 4 months as opposed to 6. And we're highlighting women artists from the permanent collection. We're continuing exhibitions that opened last season. So the only art that we're handling is art that's already in place or art that's in our building. And we are putting together protocols for visitorship. So they have to wear a mask, they have to use hand sanitizer. We're having signage on the floor that keeps them 6 feet apart. They'll have a handout that explains how to move through the museum in a one-way pattern. We will have a guard there that I'm hiring independent of our typical in-house guard so that he can do maintenance. We're working with the FUSD, Fresno Unified School District, on our field trips. We've already signed the contract for this coming school year, but their whole thing is still up in the air. So we have the children to consider too once they come back in. Our Bonner Auditorium probably will not be booked for at least 6 to 8 months, so that we can space people apart from each other and still have a full enough audience for whatever that event might be. So this is super complicated, but we're hoping that the joy of being able to come back to the museum far outweighs the machinations we're all going to have to implement that are completely different than how we used to be. That's our hope.
In December, well, I canceled our shows this summer at the Memorial Auditorium, but we have kept Matilda open, which is scheduled. It's scheduled to open, I think, December 4th. So that's our plan, is to proceed with Matilda. I don't know, honestly, whether that will happen or not. whether we'll have to regroup. But as I said, we regrouped 4 times before coming up with a 5th plan for summer. So we've gotten good at regrouping, as I'm sure everyone has in daily life as well as in the business. So our plan is to try to do Matilda. The one thing after saying that is, I'm not sure how the theater would work out, how the seating would have to be different, probably. We would have to figure out spacing and things like that. So, it's interesting. Julie Lucido is the director for Matilda, and she's working with us on our summer program. And we're going to try to have performances with the few kids that we have doing the program in our rehearsal space. And she's been studying what they call social distancing performing. She just talked a little bit about it. And so that's something we're going to try out in our summer program. And it may be something that we'll consider doing with Matilda. I don't know.
We're anticipating, or hoping, I should say, that we will be able to get back into live performance sometime in, the late winter, spring of 2021. That's our planning for right now is to try to get back into performance, by February of 2021, if conditions allow. But that's the critical issue is what will the conditions be at that time, and what kinds of performance might be possible at that time. What size in terms of the number of musicians that could be involved, and also the size of the audience, and what conditions might apply in terms of social distancing, both for the artists as well as the patrons. We're planning with a wide variety of scenarios at this point, so that we're trying to plan in a way that we can adapt as needed to circumstances. But we feel it's necessary and important to develop a plan for getting back into live performance. We understand that there's a lot of this that's out of our control, but that we feel we need to be in that planning mode. I think that between now and then, we will continue to do more and more activity online, and that I think that's sort of the two-pronged approach we're taking now, is to try to continue to develop the ability to do more things, and more interesting and more sophisticated things online, but also be working towards the time when we can be back with an audience in the same space.
There's no other way that we can proceed other than to actually lay out schedules and to plan rehearsals and plan opening dates, and allow on the Roger Rocca's side, we're separate entities, so they have their whole set of planning to allow them to start their planning process. Our other theater, the Second Space, gives us a little more flexibility, and we really have worked to look over the next few months anyway. It's hard to plan 6 months when you don't know when month one is. Yeah. And that's been the most haunting part of it. So when month one starts, I think we're hopeful of the return of King and I, and we're hopeful for the perhaps total run or a shortened run or whatever of Freaky Friday and Elf and Roger Rocca's side. And in the Second Space, we're definitely planning this Random World, but we have some opportunities to do everything from production of love letters to readings and that. But it's planning. It's all, there's a lot of hope involved. If you take away the hope, it's hard. I think probably people in prison have hope. How else do you put those marks on the wall? And so, but you have to have a plan in case it becomes real. And so that's what the 6 months will look like. If 6 months gets us through the holidays and we're doing holiday shows, then I feel like we would be on pretty firm ground with the support that Laurie mentioned. That's been extraordinary. People want us to have 6 months and 6 years and 6 decades. I'm too old, but they want it, and we're going to do it.
I mean, I think me personally, I'm optimistic that by December, hopefully, we will have a production on stage. I don't know that I can speak for the Arts Council when I say that. I say that me personally. In terms of our organization, we're following the mandates of the city of Selma, and we really just want to be safe, and we want to. We don't have any problem taking things slow and putting the safety of our team and our audiences first. We're going to comply with all of the social distancing regulations as they continue to evolve. With the support of the city, we do have some options. Right now, we are considering one of those options. In Selma, there's this really great place called Pioneer Village. I don't know if you're aware of it. Pioneer Village is like a little park in Selma. And so there's a possibility of being able to do a production outdoors at Pioneer Village. The space is large enough for it, and I think that our teams are savvy enough to make something happen out there. And so that's one of the possibilities that we're considering. I think regardless of where we are, we're determined to deliver artistic something, rather, Right now we are working online, like a lot of organizations are. We've been hosting weekly Zoom reunions of past casts, which have been a lot of fun to do. The community has stepped up. We have some arts classes that we're offering online through Zoom. Me and Ned's sponsored a lot of those events that we're doing right now, a dance class with Michael and a prop class with Kim. So I think, we're looking at how to turn the kind of online things into a regular, maybe like a podcast or something that people could tune into regularly, and do our best to deliver whatever we can. I think that we're a group of really savvy, creative people at the table, and so we're all sitting around thinking, what can we do that people aren't doing yet, or how can we help other organizations in the things that they're doing now?
Absolutely. You can't kill art. Art would survive long past this coronavirus.
I think that the independent visual artists in Fresno have had it rough. I know the Fresno Arts Council is trying very hard to bring money in that can be disseminated. But in this day and age, a grant of $2,500 may be 1 month. It may be 2 months if you starve yourself to death. If you can get a reprieve from your landlord, if you can not buy supplies, it's still so raw and new for all of the arts in Fresno. We're going to have to see what happens. But I'm worried. I think survival is still a really big issue right now, and we need the money to ensure that survival. It takes money, and either the city's going to have to help. So far, their grants are for for-profits only. They're for small businesses at under 75 employees, I believe, but you have to be for-profit, so we can't apply. We've had to go to the federal government for help and independent foundations.
And what I'm hoping is that this can be maybe the rebirth, or like the resurrection of the arts, as opposed to the death of the arts. That's what I'm looking forward to. And I think that also I would love to see us, all of the people in the arts, become more collaborative in what we do. I've always felt that could be something that would be a real step forward for the arts community to build a stronger, united group.
I think the arts will survive this. What I'm hearing both from our musicians, from our board members, from our supporters that we've been in contact with, I think everyone wants the arts to get back into operation. And I think they miss us. I think they value us. I think the arts community is going to change dramatically through this process. That I'm not sure that arts organizations are going to look the same on the other side of COVID-19.
Of course. the arts will survive. Not every organization in the same form, but I'll believe everybody involved in those organizations will be better and stronger, and I think it will of course survive.
You know what gets us through this is memory, that we get through stuff. That's who we are. We get through stuff. And it is the memory of the people who taught us how to get through stuff that gets us through stuff. And this is stuff right now. And you can spell it however you want, but it's stuff.
I think absolutely the art scene will be able to survive this. I think that, you know, art is a reflection of society, absolutely, and art is kind of born from these moments of peril and strife. And, you know, I think that sure, we're bruised and battered. I think that some organizations are going to have a more difficult time kind of getting out of this hole than others. But I know that this is a community that bands together and stands together. And I have a lot of faith in at least these local organizations that want to do the best to help each other out. I think that, you know, this also gives us the opportunity to come even stronger, right? Who knows, the next great renaissance can be on the other side of this, you know? And so I'm very optimistic in the power of art and the power of artists coming together in these times. And so I think that surely art will survive this.
To accompany this video story, I posted a written piece that goes into a lot more detail, includes even more arts organizations. It also gets deeper into the financial and artistic challenges ahead. I encourage you to find that story at munroreview.com.